Hi, this is Jack Downs. Let's get into the color exercise 2-3. But first, remember you have to complete color 1. And maybe with the break and everything going on, you need to review some color information. Well, let me suggest you could first go to the presentations folder on Moodle and look at the PDF there, which was I used in the presentation. However, maybe you'd like some more detail and actually hear me do the presentation, in which case, remember, if you go to Moodle and go down to the area where it says instructional videos on YouTube by Jack Downs, that would be a giant pile of videos. It's a big unorganized pile from all kinds of things and all kinds of classes. And if you go there, though, you should be able to filter out pretty easily to find 2 videos I would suggest. There's the color overview part 1, and then color overview part 2. That's really my presentation, similar to what I did in class, although it's a few years old. That will give you the basic background that you need. Also, remember when you get the color one done, it's going to look like this, right? It's going to the key thing is this RGBA background, getting that right. Otherwise, it'll look similar to this, and you'll have link styling that highlights, and when we have a visited link, it will look different than the others. That's the key thing. Remember, in all this color stuff, sure, color backgrounds, getting good contrast with text. Honestly, I think this background is a little dark for this text. Getting maybe some appropriate color on a header if you decide to. All those things are important, but the key thing and the hard thing is getting it all to work with the link styling. Okay, so let's imagine that you've done all that, you've got the color 1 done, you submitted it, it's all good, and you're moving on to color 2 and 3, which, here's the exercise, which you can download from Moodle and read over the PDF. We'll look at it now. So the idea is you're practicing picking colors, website colors, using an online color tool. And this is due not during this week, actually. It's due on the Monday, but I'm assuming you're going to work on it throughout the week. And remember, there's also a on-paper worksheet. It says checklist. I should say worksheet is more like it on paper. Well, it's not on paper. It's a Word document we'll look at in just a moment too. That's going to be submitted also. First thing you're going to do is going to choose an online color resource. If you Google free online color scheme designers, for instance, you'll get lots of options. Probably on the top of the list will be these 2. Maybe people use Adobe Color. Hey, I forgot to put the link in there. I'll try to fix that, but it's really easy to find. All you have to do is Adobe Color. It used to be called Cooler with a K, but now it's just called Adobe Color. This is what it looks like. I don't really use it much myself. However, you can choose a monochromatic, triad, complementary, and analogous, they call it, in their version. I would suggest analogous. These 4 you'll probably use. And when you find one you like, you'll move it around. You can change to make it darker or make it lighter. The different color portions of the color, shift them around, and then you'll find some colors that you like. Make it all lighter, make it all darker, so on. It takes a little learning curve to get used to this. When you find the colors you like, of course you can go in and actually just see those hashtags right there. You can just use them, and there's more you can learn about this program. But I don't use this one. You can use it if you like, or any others to find a scheme. I think you're going to use Paladin, which is the other link that I have there. Okay, Paladin. Paladin has one problem now I've noticed. It happened to me in class the other day when I demoed this the first time. For some reason, right now, Paladin seems to be having a trouble with their example section, which is not really necessary. But there is an earlier version. I'll show you how to find the link, or this link right here, which the examples are working, but it's not quite as cool looking. You decide which one you want. Here is Paladin. And the idea is, first you're going to choose a color scheme, monochromatic, or it's going to be you see this is like adjacent colors, or a triad, or maybe a tetrad, which is really kind of crazy. So let's say I would suggest one of these first 3. And yes, you have to deal with these dumb ads that keep popping up. Maybe that's part of their problem here. I think they're trying to monetize it. So first you would go ahead and grab these colors and slide them around. You can see the scheme that's developing over here on the left. And let's say, personally, I like, yeah, maybe something in the green and blues, I'm going to say, just for me. That's just for me. But I want to make the whole thing lighter. I think that's too dark, because I'm going to imagine dark text, black text. So I'm going to go to more pastels for me. I can move this around anywhere and try to add darker, lighter, and so on. I'm going to go up into there for me, something like that. Okay, now I could just go use these colors. I can hover over them and see them. Okay, I can do a different kind of preview, for instance. By the way, I can look at the colors right here and look at presets here. I want to go to preset colors instead. I can fine tune this further with hue and saturation and so on. Okay, if I go to preview, and I'll have to try that. Can I do color designer 3? And then I could try examples. Still not working. The examples are supposed to work on dark page, light page, positive designs, negative designs, but you see the colors are not really changing. So those are not working. Okay, no big deal. This is the default preview of the colors here. However, I can get the export this. Now, one of the export choices which I find interesting. First of all, I click on export here. I can really see all the colors and tones. I could take all those numbers down in RGB or hashtags. See, those are the hashtags there. So that would be one option for probably the best way to get those colors out of here into your worksheet, if you chose like these right here. There's another one I wanted to show you. What is it? Maybe I'm forgetting it. It's not under examples. No. Oh well, maybe it's in the other designer example. Tables, exports. I can export if I just want the code itself. I can actually get the actual colors here like this in hex or in RGB. So that would be another option. Get rid of that. So those are the different ways to look at the colors. But there's a color combinations. That's what I want to see. Color combinations. Color combinations would show you the combination of light and dark on these, or with white perhaps, or almost white. So you can see the contrast. And I can see, gee, if I was going to use a black text, it would work pretty well on these backgrounds here, but it might be difficult on these backgrounds here. And I could see I could use a link color and a background color here on these. So color combinations I think is useful. All right, good. So I would use a color designer like this. Now let's see how we're really going to use it. And I'm going to get rid of this for now, and we'll leave this here. Get rid of this for now here also. Get that ready. Okay, so in the assignment, it says you're going to choose a color picker, Adobe Color or Paladin, or an earlier version I'll show you maybe in a moment. You can develop 2 color schemes. And you're going to also go make copies of your color 2, 3, follow these instructions. So you're going to make copies of your color 1 into a new project and root folder. In the root folder, paste 2 copies. The first one you're going to name color 2, your last name. The second one you're going to name color 3, your last name. You're going to edit them both in Notepad++. What are you going to put in there? Where are you going to get those? I see it shows you short how you get those colors. You'll also see there's a Word document to download. Okay, and this is what it looks like. It's the color 2 exercise worksheet. You could call it color 2, 3. It says WB on there, but just ignore that. What you're going to do is you're going to actually write up for me, first of all, what I want you to do for color 2 and then for color 3. It's 2 different versions of this. You actually write in here what is the color scheme type you're going to use. Like, for instance, I don't want them both schemes to be the same. You might do a monochromatic and a triad, for instance, depending on what designer, Adobe Color or color scheme designer you're using. They'll have different names for them. So what do I mean by the overall color scheme? I mean this idea, monochromatic, that's an adjacent, that's a triad. You see that these are showing up here. Or an Adobe Color, they would be these ideas here, the overall scheme type. So you're going to mark that on your worksheet. I want one to be one kind, one to be the other. Overall background color, okay, obviously that would be this kind of color here, okay. Then you've got accent background color. I mean that by the header area. In other words, that would be this area in here. I'm asking you to have a different color for that, okay. General text color, it probably is going to be black. It might be white if you're doing a very dark background. Color for headers, and all these, they can be RGB or hex. You can write them in. You don't have to have colors, different colors in your headers. I suggest you have color on at least one header, maybe an H1 or an H2. All right, so just list what color you're going to use for that. Link colors. This is the problem, and I have a best practices thing I'm going to show you in a minute. So the problem here is you have to have a static link color, which is a link, right? A colon link. And that's going to be what the link looks like before you click on it or hover over it. Then you have to have a visited, and then which is going to be after it's been clicked on. All right. Each of these might have background colors, but they probably won't. They'll probably just be text color. So you write those in there, but you're almost certainly going to have a background color on your focus and hover, which are the same thing, and then your active, which could be the same also. You could make all three of those the same, but you need to have them all. As you did need to have them in your color 1, you need to have them all in your color 2 and 3. So you're gonna develop those from the color scheme that you build, because they all have to relate together. And you shouldn't use the same color for a header and then use it for a link also. They have to have their own colors, okay? So, and they have to be different from each other. Remember, static needs to stand out, visited can be a little duller, and we definitely need to get feedback on the hover or focus. Then you're going to do the same thing again for color 3, the whole thing again. And finally, in this worksheet here, you're going to answer this question for me in text. Type it up. So you'll work in this Word document or save all this text into a Google document and work there. Either save out a Word document or save out a PDF for me, and that's what you're going to put up in the Dropbox, but not in the root folder. Okay, in the root folder is just going to be those HTML documents, 2 of them. So having seen the kinds of stuff you're going to write down here, let's look at the color scheme designer again. Remember, Adobe Color if you wish. I'm using Paladin. I showed you how you go around, you find different colors and try different schemes. I'm also going to show you now the earlier version, the previous version. Okay, I'll make it a little bigger too. It's again got the different scheme types here. Again, you can go around the circle here, right? But to adjust the scheme and make it lighter or darker or so on, let's see, I'm going to go to complementary, and I'm going to go to this area here. I like this area. To adjust the scheme, you have to go to this adjustment area here, and I can adjust the contrast and the saturation and brightness. So I might go over to here, right? I could adjust the overall contrast also. Less contrast, more contrast, using these guys here. I can look at the color list that I come up with as a result. I can go back to hues. Okay, good. And then the advantage here is I can look at a light page example. This is the way these colors could be used on a page. It even shows you possibly a hover. And I could go to a dark page example. These options are supposed to work on the other version of this, but they're not right now. But you can see what they'd look like if they did work. You could see. And again, you could go. Unfortunately, most of the export stuff isn't working now. I believe if you go to export it, it's going to give you an error. This is the old version, so that's the problem with this one. So maybe you develop the scheme here and you go to the other place. If you like the examples, maybe you don't really care much. The previews, light page example, dark page example, the only options there. But now I can actually look at these and get the numbers right here if I want them. And I can look at the color list here and get all the numbers, the primary and the complementary colors to go with them. Okay, so that's the overall look at this, the key points there. Now let's look at the best practices for links. Okay, and I want to go over the idea of link design best practices. And this definitely should be reading your color chapter on all this also. So remember, links need to stand out. Not with super bright colors that burn your eyeballs out and make it hard to read, but just be something different. I also suggested in class that You might want to bold all your links. You do that with the A, the plain old A. Remember, when we're doing link styling, we do like, if we're going to remove text decoration, which is underline, this is how we do it. And if you want to bold all your links, this is where you do it too. But this is not the static state. The static state is the A link. It needs to stand out. That color you use there, though, has to be different from headers. Okay, and it's probably just a plain color. But if you're using a relatively fine type, it may not carry much color, so maybe you need to bold the links. We don't use underline anywhere except links. In other words, anywhere else on your page, we don't use underlining because people will think it's a link. But then, strangely, we often then remove it, as I just showed you, removing it from links, removing underline from links. Consider switching background, foreground on hover and focus. Remember, hover and focus can be the same thing. So a typical thing we do is switch the background, foreground on those. That's not been done in your color 1, but you can see you have a background, the background color, and you have a foreground, the color of the text. Or if you just switch those on hover or focus. Consider adding and removing underline on hover focus. You can add that underline come back on hover focus. You can also change capitalization or size. In fact, you can do almost anything you want that you can do to text, you can do on a hover and focus. Consider making visited stand out a bit less. In other words, it shouldn't have to be quite as attention-getting as the static state because you've already been there. But it has to be different from the regular text, though, too. And you still have to be able to read it, so it can't be so dull or low contrast that it becomes invisible. So that's the hard thing. Stand out, but not quite as much. Be different from regular text. Have a color that works in the color scheme. Maybe it's just a little lighter or a little grayer. Avoid. I generally think the target equals underscore blank. The problem with forcing things to open up in a new window or tab is that it kind of makes people feel like you take their control away. So it's probably not such good etiquette these days. Most designers make hover and focus identical. Remember, they're doing the same thing. And we only really see the hover. Focus is for accessibility. And you might as well include active in that if you wish to, because active happens so fast, we generally miss it. Links must be styled in the right order. Lord Voldemort fights Harry alone. Or we could say Lord Vader, former handle Anakin. Or some people remember love, hate, and try to find the letters in there. However you remember them, they need to be styled in that order. It doesn't really matter if focus and hover are switched, but LV needs to be first, and these need to be afterwards. A generally last, or else they may not work right. Navigation links are handled the same in a way, but you have to have a whole different set of styles for them. So don't really worry about this for the color 2-3 assignment. But in general, you'll see when we move on to navigation, you also are going to have a hover focus and a static state, but you won't have a visited, and they have to have a whole different set of link styling because they are a whole different kind of link. They might use some of the same colors, but they're going to be a whole different set of styling because we don't want a visited to apply to. But that's for the future. Okay, so read all this over, think about it, work with your color picker, fill out your worksheet, then go try the stuff out in color 2-3. Maybe you have to go redo your worksheet. Eventually, you're going to have a root folder with 2 HTML documents zipped and put in the Dropbox. And then you're also going to save there a Word document or PDF from the worksheet for me too. And don't forget that little short answer, or a couple of a paragraph or two answer at the bottom of that worksheet.